Hey guys, how's it going? Gonna do the what's next on Callum Smith, the WBA Super-Middleweight Super Champion. He's undefeated right now. He main evented a DAZN card on Saturday, November 23rd from the United Kingdom when he took on little-known John Ryder, the interim champion, and got out with a hard-fought, somewhat controversial unanimous decision. I didn't score the fight. I was watching it, but I didn't score the fight. And from what I saw, this fight was pretty damn close. Really could have went either way. I don't have a problem with the argument from the John Ryder camp that he should have won this fight. But Callum Smith really was lucky to get out of there without a decision going against him and his world title. You know what? I honestly think this might have been a ploy by Callum Smith because, he might have been making this fight close on purpose and making himself not look great just to draw in the big fight. Callum Smith's been waiting around for a big fight since he won the World Boxing Super Series last year in September when he knocked out George Groves. I think he thought a lot of big fights were just going to fall in place for him, and that just hasn't happened. He's a lengthy type fighter. He can box, and he's got a bit of power. So I think he's being avoided for that reason right there. Plus 168, there's a lot of majority of the bigger names are fighting for the PBC right now. So there's not as many fights as he would hope for that wouldn't be hard to make. So I think he's just got to wait around and get the right fight. But he survived a scare. So now the big question is, what's next for the undefeated WBA Super-Middleweight Super Champion Callum Smith from the United Kingdom? We're gonna run through the top 10. We'll start with Canelo. I don't see a Canelo fight happening right now. He was on the short list for Canelo because they're both DAZN fighters. Canelo fights are Golden Boy, and Callum Smith fights are Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. But yeah, I just don't see it. I don't know if it's a bad matchup for Canelo, or I think it's more that Callum Smith is just not a big name. But you never know. He didn't look great. Maybe Canelo would take a crack at him. But honestly, I'm leaning against it. I don't see it. Now, number 3, the undefeated WBC champion, David Benavidez. Benavidez has his mandatory next in January against Avni Yildirim. And I really believe they're loading up for a huge showdown with him and Caleb Plant to unify belts later next year. So Callum Smith shouldn't really want to wait right now. He should want to get back in the ring and see what potential fights he could have. Right now, I just don't see it. Against number 3, Benavidez was number 4, technically. Number 3 is Danny Jacobs, the former 2-time middleweight champion. I like this fight right here. I'm not sure. Danny's making his debut this month at super middleweight, and he's a Matchroom DAZN fighter. If Danny looks really good, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes after Callum Smith next. I think Danny's kind of in the driver's seat. I think he could get a Callum Smith or a Billy Joe Saunders fight if he wanted. So, I could see this fight happening next. So we'll see. I do think it's a possibility right here. Number 5 is the undefeated WBO champion, Billy Joe Saunders. I would love this fight to be a unification bout between 2 undefeated guys from the United Kingdom. I think it would be big in the United Kingdom and really make a lot of money for both of them and really separate one person at the top of 168. But can the fight get made? Callum Smith's people is talking about other fights, not Billy Joe Saunders next. So I would love to see it. They're both promoted by the same guy. Very easy fight to make. I hope they can get it done. I really do. I want to see this fight next because it's unifying belts. But we'll see. We just got to see what happens. Number 6 is undefeated IBF champion Caleb Plant of the United States. Plant, it looks like he could be facing Alfredo Angulo on February 15th. And then after that, I think he's got a unification bout with David Benavidez that he's probably going to go after. But it's also Matchroom working with, in DAZN working with the PBC. I really don't see either side giving up the main event rights for this fight. I think both sides see themselves as the main event or the A side here. So, I don't see this fight next for Callum Smith. Number 7 is former 2-time world champion Anthony Durrell. I don't see this one next. I don't think Callum Smith would be opposed to it. I just don't think Darrell would sign up for a fight with Callum Smith next. I don't see it. Number 8 is former champion Caleb Truax. Well, Truax is actually returning this month, taking on some nobody. He's had injuries that kept him out most of this year, so he's just trying to get back in the mix. I also think he's a PBC guy. I wouldn't completely rule it out because Truax still has a name. He beat James DeGale a couple years ago and then lost the title back to him in a very close fight. I don't think Callum Smith will be completely against it because this guy's come over to the United Kingdom and beat a guy like, a guy like kind of in Smith's position before in DeGale. So I don't think either side would be against it. I think it is possible, but I don't think it's going to be Callum Smith's first choice, but I do think it could happen. Next at number 9 is former IBF champion Jose Ustadegi. Again, this could be a possibility, but I think it's an outside possibility. I think Smith really wants somebody else next, and I don't see it, but it could happen because Ustadegi is trying to get back in the mix after losing his title in January this year. And then finally, at number 10, we got a two-way tie for 10th. A rematch with John Ryder possibly could happen if he doesn't have any other options. I could see Callum Smith facing John Ryder in a rematch and just dominating him. To leave no doubts, but right now I'm going to lean against it, but it could happen because Smith has struggled to get opponents, and it would probably be a big fight in the United Kingdom for Callum Smith, just not on a world level. And then finally, tied for 10th is Avni Yildirim, former world title challenger. I don't see Callum Smith and Yildirim getting together. Yildirim's fighting David Benavidez in January. If he were to win that fight and pull off the upset against Benavidez, maybe, but I see more a rematch happening with Benavidez than that. So just got to wait and see. I think there's strong chances of guys at the top like Danny Jacobs and Billy Joe Saunders being both promoted by Matchroom. And then I think Caleb Truax makes sense in the second half of the top 10, or even a rematch with John Ryder if he just wants to stay busy and leave no doubt who the better man was. So we'll see. Hopefully we hear something soon. I like Callum Smith a lot, and I hope he gets back in the ring soon. All right, guys, that's it on the undefeated WBA Super Champion Callum Smith. True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.